Welcome to Shredder Fanfic. Like, subscribe, and hype video. Join members to gain early access to new videos. The main character, after dying inside of his previous life, gets reborn inside of the land before time as the Indoraptor from Jurassic World. What is he gonna do inside of the land before time?
Fast biter, not fresh. Maybe before the raw, maybe after. Hard to tell. That is not good, Ducky whispered. No, it was not. Kuro crouched beside the stone. A fresh sign was a voice. An erased sign was a memory. A stale sign was something worse. A dead voice pretending it still knew the way. The larger predator roared from the rough hills before anyone could speak. Farther away than last night. Maybe. Sound bent strangely around rock. Kuro did not trust it. The roar could mean the fast biters had kept the larger beast busy. It could mean the beast had lost them. It could mean nothing except hunger moving under the trees. Littlefoot looked from the old scratches to the hills. If someone followed this because they thought it was yours, they would leave the watched path. Yes. Sira's frill lifted, then erase it. Kuro did not move. That made her angrier. What? We erase bad marks. We just made that rule. First read. We know what it says. It says danger. Maybe. Grandma Longneck stepped closer, her shadow cooling the stone. Kuro is right. If we erase every strange mark before we understand it, we may lose proof of who placed it and why. Sira hated that answer. Kuro could tell because she did not immediately argue. She only kicked a pebble hard enough to make it skitter. They formed a ring around the stone and did the new rule backward. 3 readers first described what they saw. Littlefoot named direction and distance. Ducky named the shape and the hidden dip beyond the bushes. Petrie named what he had seen from above. The mark aimed toward a place where watchers on the main ridge could not see. Sira named the important part. It is bait, she said. Maybe old bait, still bait. Kuro scraped a line in the dirt beside the stone, then pressed a leaf flat on one end and dropped a pinch of dry dust on the other. Fresh. Old. The children stared. He added a small pebble in the middle. Maybe. Petrie tilted his head. Marks need ages now. Yes. Of course they do, Sira grumbled. Why would surviving be simple? Chomper looked almost pleased. Fresh smell, old dust, maybe if rain changed it. Kuro nodded. That became the next rule, and the valley disliked it immediately. Every sign had to be judged by age before meaning. Fresh marks could guide. Old marks warned but could not be followed. Uncertain marks stopped movement until 3 readers agreed or an adult checked the route. It was clumsy. It also would have saved someone from the pale stone. The fast biters appeared near midday. Not close, not attacking, just visible in flashes beyond the brush, moving along the far slope in the direction of the rough hills. Kuro saw 3 at first, then the torn-crested leader behind them. The pack moved with more control now, no longer fleeing blindly from the larger predator. They paused whenever the hills groaned with distant sound. They listened. They adjusted. They were learning the same lesson from the other side. Littlefoot saw them too. They are staying on the path you wanted. For now. Do you think they left the old mark? Kuro looked at the pale stone. Maybe. The torn-crested leader stopped on the far slope and turned his head. Even at that distance, Kuro felt the attention like a claw at the back of his neck. The fast biter could not see the little age map in the dirt. He could see the gathered valley. He could see Kuro beside the stone. His jaw opened in a silent shape that might have been laughter, challenge, or warning. Then the larger predator crashed somewhere beyond the ridge. Trees shook, birds burst into the sky. The fast biters vanished into motion, flowing around stone and brush with the speed of thrown shadows. One of them broke left, toward the hidden dip. The old mark suddenly mattered. Kuro lunged before anyone shouted. He did not chase the fast biter. Chasing would push it faster. Instead, he cut across the shallow rise and struck the ground ahead of the hidden dip, claws tearing a fresh cross through leaves and dirt. Stop! Behind him, Chomper barked the meaning in sharp-toothed tongue. The young fast biter skidded, body twisting. For half a breath, it looked ready to ignore the warning and dive into the blind gap anyway. Then the larger predator's head punched through brush above the dip. Massive jaws snapped empty air where the fast biter would have been. The young hunter screamed and threw itself backward. Kuro slammed his tail into a rotten log, cracking it loud enough to make the bigger predator swing its head toward him instead. He did not stay to be brave. Brave was for stories told after survival. He sprinted sideways, keeping the beast's eyes off the valley and off the stumbling fast biter until the torn-crested leader shrieked from the slope. The pack moved as one. Not to help Kuro, to reclaim their own. They flashed across the larger predator's flank, too quick to catch, snapping just enough to anger and redirect. Kuro used the moment to retreat behind a broken stone shelf. The larger predator followed the pack's motion, bellowing, and thundered away from the valley mouth. Silence came back in pieces. First, the leaves stopped shaking. Then Petrie landed with a wobble. Then Ducky remembered to breathe. Sierra stared at the hidden dip. That old mark could have killed one of them. Yes, Littlefoot said softly. Good, Sierra said, then frowned as if the word tasted wrong. No, not good. I mean, they are enemies. But if they die there, the big one learns that gap. Then it comes closer. Kuro watched her wrestle with the shape of practical mercy and said nothing. Some lessons worked better when they hurt a little. The torn-crested leader reappeared on the far slope before sunset. One young fast biter limped behind him, alive and furious. The leader looked toward Kuro, then toward the pale stone. Slowly, with theatrical care, he scraped 3 fresh marks across a different rock. Not toward the valley. Toward the rough hills. Then he dragged dirt over the old pale scratches until they disappeared. Sierra made a strangled sound. Did he just fix the sign? For himself, Kuro said. Grandpa Longneck's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Still useful to us. No one liked that either. By dusk, the valley added the age rule to the temporary map drill. Fresh, old, maybe, safe to follow, unsafe to follow, stop and ask. The children repeated the categories until they could say them even while annoyed, frightened, or tired. Especially tired. Fear loved tired minds. Kuro erased the practice marks after each round. This time he did not leave the ground merely blank. He brushed dust across it, scattered leaves, and made the absence look natural. A clean erase could draw attention. A living forest hid its own secrets better. When night settled, the rough hills answered with one distant roar and 4 sharp fast-biter cries. The cries did not sound friendly. They sounded coordinated. Kuro stood at the boundary and listened until the last echo died. The valley had learned to read marks. Now the enemies were learning to edit them. Asterisk chapter 37, Marks with Teeth. By the next morning, the fast biters were not hiding their work anymore. That worried Kuro more than secrecy would have. 3 fresh claw marks had been cut into the bark of a crooked tree beyond the eastern boundary. They pointed toward the rough hills. They were clean, deep, and new enough that pale sap still shone along the edges. The torn-crested leader wanted the valley to see them. Or wanted Kuro to see them. Littlefoot stood well behind the boundary line with Ducky and Sierra beside him. Petrie circled overhead, low enough to watch the bushes, but high enough that no sudden leap would catch him. Chomper sniffed the air, nose twitching hard. Fast biter, Chomper said. Leader, fresh, very proud. Sierra snorted. Of scratching a tree. Of making us look, Littlefoot said. That was the part Kuro disliked. A mark could point to danger. A mark could point away from danger. It could also point at itself and make everyone waste time staring while something moved elsewhere. He crouched and studied the ground below the tree. The bark mark was fresh. The tracks around it were not all fresh. Some were older, dust-set, and softened by night damp. Others cut across them, newer and sharper. The pack had used the same place twice. That meant the tree was not only a sign. It was a meeting point. Kuro scraped 3 small marks into the dirt beside him, fresh, old, maybe. Then he added a 4th mark with a jagged edge. Bait. Ducky leaned forward, then stopped herself before crossing the boundary. It wants us to think about the rough hills. Yep, yep, yep. Maybe because the big sharp-tooth is there, Littlefoot said. Or because it is not, Sierra answered. Good. Kuro looked at her and tapped the bait mark. Sierra's neck straightened. I know, I know. Do not trust the thing that wants to be noticed. Petrie called from above. Something moving west, not big, fast. The bushes on the far side trembled once, then went still. Not an attack, a glimpse, a deliberate one. A young fast biter showed its tail between 2 stones, vanished, then scraped claws across rock loudly enough for every watcher to hear. Chomper bared his teeth. They are making a trail. No, they were making an argument. Kuro moved sideways, keeping inside the open ground where the valley could see him. The fast biter trail went west, away from the fresh tree marks. Too obvious, too loud. The pack wanted watchers split between the marked tree and the noisy runner. He lifted his head and listened for what was not making noise. Leaves shifted behind the old water trail. There. Kuro snapped his tail against the ground twice. Stop, look again. Littlefoot grabbed Ducky gently before she could step toward the noisy west trail. Sierra swung around toward the water trail instead. Her eyes narrowed. There, she hissed. Old Dip, the blind place. A second fast biter crouched near the dip where yesterday's stale mark had almost killed one of its own. This one carried a strip of bark in its mouth. At first Kuro thought it was food or nesting scrap. Then the fast biter dropped it against a stone. The bark had marks already cut into it. A movable sign. Kuro felt cold anger slide under his scales. The pack had learned too quickly. A carved branch could be placed where no sign had been made. A scrap of marked bark could turn any path into a lie. If a frightened child found it without 3 readers, without scent, without age, the ground itself would become untrustworthy. The fast biter looked toward the valley and shoved the bark with 1 claw, angling it toward the boundary. Sierra growled, absolutely not. For once, Kuro agreed with every bit of her tone. He crossed the boundary in a rush low enough to make dust leap. The fast biter bolted, but Kuro did not chase it. He pounced on the bark instead and crushed it beneath 1 claw until the marked strip split into useless fibers. The noisy runner to the west shrieked. The torn-crested leader answered from the rough hill's side. Then the larger predator roared. Close. Too close. The sound erupted from behind the rough line of trees, not deep in the hills anymore, but along the lower slope where the ground began bending toward the valley. Birds scattered. Petrie yelped and climbed higher. The fast biters froze for 1 heartbeat, and in that heartbeat Kuro understood the shape of the trap. The pack had not been trying to guide the larger predator away. They had been trying to guide the valley into watching the wrong signs, while the larger predator circled lower. Not because the fast biters controlled it, they did not. Because they were using its hunger like weather. Grandpa Longneck's voice rolled from behind the boundary. Everyone back, slowly. The children obeyed, but their eyes stayed on Kuro. Bad, he did not want to be the thing they watched. He wanted them watching the ground, the trees, the moving gaps. Kuro scraped a fresh cross in the dirt, then pointed with his snout to Petrie. Hi, reader. Petrie shook in the air, then forced himself to look away from Kuro and toward the slope. Big one moving left. No, down, down toward split rocks. Littlefoot rebuilt the old map with pebbles so quickly his feet stumbled. If it comes through split rocks, it reaches the low grass. And low grass leads here, Sira said. Ducky looked at the crushed bark under Kuro's claw, but the false sign pointed this way. It wanted someone there first. 3 readers, 3 pieces, the picture formed. Kuro cut a new mark into the dirt, but not a path, a warning. Movable signs lie. He shoved the broken bark beside it and crushed the pieces smaller. Chomper repeated the meaning aloud, voice shaking but clear. The adults heard. The children heard. From the far brush, the fast biters heard too. The torn-crested leader stepped into view beyond the marked tree, his milky eye fixed on the bark splinters. His mouth opened, showing teeth in a silent threat. Kuro showed his teeth back. Not a chase, not a truce, a rule. If the pack wanted to use signs, they could use signs tied to ground, scent, age, and memory. If they made lies that could be moved like leaves, Kuro would destroy them. The larger predator crashed through the split rocks. For a few breaths, rules became motion. Petrie shouted from above. Littlefoot shifted the pebble map. Sira called the low grass unsafe. Ducky pointed out a stone line that still led away from the valley. Chomper barked warnings in sharp-toothed sounds. The adults moved the youngest children deeper inside without running. Kuro sprinted to the stone line and tore a fresh mark across the ground, then another, then erased the middle so it could not be copied easily from far away. The sign said less than a map and more than a scratch. Not here, around. The fast biters read it first. The leader snapped once, furious but practical. His pack scattered toward the stone line, flashing across the larger predator's sight just enough to pull its head away from the valley. Kuro slammed his claws against stone, adding noise to movement, and the broad beast followed the chaos downslope and away from the open mouth. It did not go far, but far enough mattered. When the dust settled, the marked tree still stood. The west trail was empty. The crushed bark lay beneath Kuro's foot like dead skin. Sira stared at it with open disgust. So now signs can move. Wonderful. Not signs, Kuro said. Littlefoot looked at him. Lies. Kuro nodded. That evening the valley added another rule. A true sign belonged to a place. If a mark could be carried, dropped, or turned, it was not followed. It was brought to 3 readers, then destroyed. If it could not be safely brought, everyone treated the ground around it as a trap. Petrie liked that rule least. Too many rules. Rules keep you alive, Sira said. He gave her a look. You sound like grown-up. Sira looked horrified enough that Ducky laughed for the first time all day. Kuro stayed at the boundary until night. Across the dark, the fast biters called to one another from the rough hills. Their cries were sharp, angry, organized. They had lost the movable sign. They had not lost the idea. Kuro pressed one claw into the dirt and made 4 marks for himself. Fresh, old, maybe bait. Then he added a 5th. Carried lie. He erased it last. Asterisk chapter 38 sent that lies. The fast biters stopped carving signs after the carried bark failed. That should have been comforting. It was not. Kuro found the first scent lie beside a fallen log near the northern watch path. No claw mark, no scraped bark, no pebbles arranged into a false trail. Only smell layered carefully where the breeze would carry it toward the valley. Fresh, fast biter. Blood. Fear. Ducky smelled only the blood and went pale. Chomper smelled the rest and backed away so quickly his tail hit Littlefoot's leg. It is wrong, Chomper said. Sira lowered her head. Wrong how? Too much fear, too neat. Kuro nodded. Real panic scattered. This scent sat in one place like a word written too carefully. A hurt fast biter should have staggered, dragged, leaked terror in uneven bursts. This trail had been painted. The valley had learned to distrust marks. that could move. Now it had to distrust smells that could be placed. Littlefoot looked toward the log. They want us to think one of them is hurt. Or dead, Sira said. And then what? We rush out to look. No, Kuro said. He scraped the dirt once. Bait. Then he added a curved line for wind. Petri landed on a low branch above them. Wind carries lie. Yes. That made the adults unhappy. Marks belonged to places. Scent belonged to air. Air did not stand still for 3 readers to argue over it. Grandma Longneck lowered her head to the log, but did not step past Kuro's line. How do we read something that is already moving? Kuro pointed to Chomper, then to Petri, then to Littlefoot. Nose, sky, ground. 3 readers again, but different readers. Chomper read scent. Petri read motion from above. Littlefoot read where the trail should have gone if it were real. Together they followed the lie without following the path. Chomper walked inside the boundary. Petri watched from the air. Littlefoot rebuilt the trail with pebbles behind them, never stepping where the scent wanted him to step. The fake trail curved toward a narrow place between thorn bushes. Petri saw the problem first. No broken grass there. If hurt fast biter go through, grass break. Littlefoot placed a pebble away from the thorn gap, and there should be footprints before the blood. There are none. Chomper sniffed again and grimaced. Blood is old, fear is fresh. Sira made a disgusted sound. They mixed it. Kuro looked beyond the thorn gap and saw the torn-crested leader watching from shadow. Not close enough to attack, close enough to see whether the valley understood. Kuro stepped forward and scraped a new mark into dirt where the scent was strongest. Smell can lie. Then he covered the blood scent with wet mud until the wind could not carry it cleanly anymore. The leader's tail twitched. Good, let him be annoyed. The larger predator roared from the rough hills, lower and hoarser than before. The sound did not come with crashing brush. It was waiting somewhere out of sight, possibly wounded, possibly tired, definitely not gone. The fast biters did not flee this time. That was new. Their leader gave a soft clicking call. 2 smaller packmates slid out of the brush near the far stones and ran across open ground, not toward the valley, not away from it, but across the wind. Each carried scent on its scales, crushed fern, old blood, and the heavy musk of the larger predator. They were not only leaving lies. They were wearing them. Chomper gagged. They smell like big one. So something chases wrong target, Littlefoot whispered. Or something avoids the wrong target, Kuro thought. The fast biters were learning to make the larger predators hunger point elsewhere. If they could make the valley smell like the larger beast, or make Kuro smell like wounded prey, they could turn every nose in the forest into an enemy. Sira looked at Kuro. Can we erase smell? Kuro glanced at the mud, then at the stream path inside the valley. Change it. That became the dirtiest practice yet. The children hated it. The adults hated it more because it worked. Mud dulled blood. Crushed bitter leaves broke fierce scent. Standing upwind mattered. Crossing water broke a trail better than frantic running. Petri learned to call wind direction before anyone moved. Chomper learned to say fresh, old, mixed, or wrong. Ducky named the new rule because she was the only one who could make it sound less terrible. No signs need sky signs and foot signs too, she said. Yep, yep, yep. Kuro accepted it. Near sunset, the fast biters tried again. A thin scream came from the rough hills. It sounded like a young runner. It smelled, faintly, like blood. The wind carried it toward the valley in broken pieces. Every child froze. Fear wanted them to rush. The old rule caught them by the throat before the trap could. Fear wants us to run out, Littlefoot said, voice tight. The smell is mixed, Chomper added. Petri circled once, trembling. Grass not moving where scream comes from, moving left, something left. Sira stomped hard. Then left is where the trick is. Kuro ran left. He found the source behind a cracked stone, a hollow bone with fresh blood smeared inside it. Wind blew through the bone and made the scream. Clever, ugly, effective. Kuro crushed it under his foot. The scream died. Across the slope, the torn-crested leader stared at him with open hatred. Kuro scraped one mark into the mud. Bait. Then he dragged bitter leaves across it, until even that word smelled wrong. The valley did not cheer when he returned. Cheering would have been too simple. Instead, Littlefoot rebuilt the scent trap with pebbles, Petrie marked wind with feathers, and Chomper named what had been old, fresh, and mixed. That was better than cheering. That was learning. The practice after that was quiet in a way the valley did not like. Nobody wanted to pretend to be bait anymore. Nobody wanted to smear leaves over old blood and talk about which fear smelled real. Even Sira stopped complaining after the second round, and that made Petrie more nervous than the screaming bone had. Kuro made them do it anyway. He placed 3 harmless scent trails near the water path. One was crushed bitter leaf. One was mud over old blood from a scraped knee, borrowed only after Ducky insisted the knee did not hurt anymore. One was clean grass dragged across stone. Chomper named each smell. Petrie named where the wind pushed it. Littlefoot marked where the feet should have been if the scent belonged to a moving body. The first time, they failed. Petrie followed the strongest smell. Littlefoot followed the cleanest ground. Chomper followed the freshest fear, which was his own. The 3 answers pointed in 3 different directions. Good, Kuro said. Sira stared. That was terrible. Good to fail here. Grandma Longneck rumbled agreement. A mistake made in practice is a warning that did not have to be paid for. That sentence settled over the children heavier than praise would have. They tried again, slower this time. Angrier too, which helped Sira and hurt Petrie. By the 4th round, they no longer asked what the scent said. They asked what the scent was refusing to prove. Kuro liked that question. A lie hated being asked for feet. Night came with no attack, only distant claws on stone, and the larger predators breathing somewhere beyond the rough hills. Kuro stayed awake at the boundary, mud drying between his claws. The enemies had learned to edit marks. Now they were editing the air. Asterisk Chapter 39, The True Sign Trap. The next trap was worse because it was honest. Kuro knew the moment he saw it. 3 fresh marks cut into a flat stone near the eastern wash. Fresh, not carried. Deep enough to belong to the place. Clear enough that even Sira could not call them sloppy. They pointed away from the valley and toward the rough hills. A true sign. Probably. That was the cruelty of it. The fast biters had stopped making lies that looked false. They had learned that a real mark could still serve a trap if it told only the convenient part of the truth. Littlefoot stood behind Kuro, rebuilding the area with stones. The mark says away. Away from us, Sira said. That does not mean safe. Ducky looked miserable. A true thing can still trick you. Kuro tapped the stone once. Yes. Chomper sniffed around it, careful to keep his feet inside the safe line. Leader made it, fresh, not mixed, no blood, no fear. Petrie circled above the wash. Tracks go same way, many tracks, fast biter pack went there. Everything about the sign said truth. The larger predator roared from the same direction. There was the missing tooth. The sign did not lie about where the pack had gone. It lied by pretending that following them would help. If the valley trusted the mark too quickly, watchers might shift east. Children might believe the rough hills were still the only danger. Adults might leave the lower slope underwatched. Kuro stared at the stone until the pattern settled in his mind. A true sign could be bait for attention. He scraped the lesson into dirt beside it. True but bait. Sira groaned. That is unfair. Predators are unfair, Grandpa Longneck said. She glared up at him. I know that. I just like when they are unfair in simpler ways. No one laughed. They were too busy watching the wash. The fast biters appeared exactly where the sign said they would. Four shapes moved along the rough hill's edge, visible between stones. The torn-crested leader did not hide. He wanted the valley to know the mark had been honest. He wanted them to reward honesty with trust. Kuro did not move. The leader paused, head tilted, waiting. Behind the valley, far from the marked wash, a branch snapped. Petri jerked midair. Backslope, something big near backslope. The larger predator had not followed the pack. It had circled. The honest sign had pointed at the fast biters, while the real danger moved where the sign did not mention. Grandpa Longneck thundered a warning. Adults shifted at once, placing bodies between children and the inner slope. No panic. Not smooth, but no panic. Good. Kuro sprinted along the boundary, not toward the fast biters, not toward the honest sign, but toward the place the sign had omitted. The larger predator pushed through brush above the back slope, broad head low, one flank scratched from fast biter harassment. It was tired, angry, and close enough that its breath stirred dust. It had learned, too. Maybe not signs, maybe not rules, but roots, pressure, weak places. Kuro slammed his claws into a dry log and kicked it downslope. The crack made the predator swing its head. He flashed across open ground just long enough to be seen, then vanished behind a stone shelf before the jaws could follow. The beast lunged anyway. Stone shattered where Kuro had been. Inside the valley, the readers worked without him. Littlefoot shouted. The true sign was about the pack, not the big one. Ducky answered. Then signs must say what they do not know, too. Sira snapped. Unknown is danger. Kuro almost bared his teeth in approval while dodging a second lunge. Unknown is danger. A simple rule, a good one. The fast biters attacked the larger predator from behind because it suited them, not because it helped the valley. They came like thrown knives across the slope, snapping at the wounded flank, vanishing before the beast could turn. The torn-crested leader did not look at Kuro. He did not need to. For one ugly minute, their interests overlapped. That was not friendship. It was weather. Kuro used it. When the big predator twisted toward the pack, he crossed under its blind side and carved 3 deep marks into exposed dirt near the back slope. Not path. Warning. Then he added an empty circle beside them. Unknown. Chomper saw it first and barked the meaning. Littlefoot repeated it. Ducky placed a round pebble on the practice map. Sira called every unverified route unsafe until proven otherwise. The adults listened. The valley bent around the new rule in real time. No watcher moved because a sign told only part of the truth. No child followed the visible pack. No adult abandoned the back slope just because the marked stone pointed east. The fast biters drew the larger predator toward the rough stones again, and Kuro helped by making himself a flash of black movement at exactly the wrong moment for the beast. Finally, the broad predator retreated downslope with a roar that shook dust from the trees. Not defeated. Delayed. Kuro returned to the eastern wash after sunset. The honest fast biter mark still sat on the stone, clean and true and dangerous. Sira stood beside it with Littlefoot and Ducky. She looked less angry than thoughtful, which was more alarming. We cannot erase it, Littlefoot said. It really says where the pack went. But we cannot trust it alone, Ducky said. Sira scraped a circle beside it, not as neat as Kuro's, but clear enough. Unknown. Then she looked at him, as if daring him to complain. Kuro did not. The new rule was spoken before dark. A true sign was not enough. Every sign needed what it knew, what it did not know, and who had confirmed it. If any part was missing, the missing part became danger. Petri hated this rule too. Soon signs need signs about signs. Yes, Kuro said. Petrie stared at him. Me joking. Still yes. Ducky laughed softly. Even Sira's mouth twitched. They tested the new rule before anyone trusted it. Kuro made a true sign beside a berry bush, 3 scratches pointing to food. Littlefoot confirmed the bush. Ducky confirmed the berries were ripe. Petrie confirmed no movement above it. Sira, suspicious by nature and therefore useful, walked around the other side and found a patch of loose stones hidden under leaves. So the sign was true, she said, and still bad. Incomplete, Littlefoot corrected. Bad because incomplete, Sira shot back. Kuro marked a circle beside the scratches. Unknown. Then he waited. The children stared at him until Ducky understood. She added a pebble beside the circle for the loose stones. Petrie added a feather pointing down from above. Littlefoot added a second scratch toward the safer approach. The sign changed without becoming a lie. That mattered. A good warning did not have to know everything. It had to admit what it did not know, and it had to leave room for the next reader to make it better. That was harder than scratching danger into dirt. It required humility, which Sira claimed was another word for wasting time until Grandma Longneck looked at her. Still, when the next practice sign appeared, Sira was the first to ask, "What is missing?" Kuro remembered that. The valley was not learning to trust signs. It was learning to distrust them properly. Across the rough hills, the fast biters called once. The sound was sharp and frustrated. Kuro listened from the boundary. The pack had learned honesty could be a weapon. The valley had learned honesty needed edges. Asterisk chapter 40. Too many rules. By midday, the children could recite the rules faster than they could use them. That was a problem. Fresh, old, maybe, bait, carried lie, smell can lie, wind matters. True signs can still be incomplete, unknown is danger. 3 readers. Nose, sky, ground, speak the map, erase the map, rebuild the map. Petrie tried to say all of it while hovering over a practice trail and nearly flew into a branch. Sira caught him by the tail before he smacked into bark. Maybe surviving should not need a song. Me hate survival song, Petrie muttered. Kuro watched from the boundary and did not laugh. The rules were correct. That did not make them usable. A rule that took too long to remember could kill as surely as a bad sign. The fast biters found that weakness before sunset. It began with a real scream. Not bone whistle, not painted fear. Real pain, sharp and sudden, from the lower slope near the eastern wash. Chomper's head snapped up. Petrie shot into the air. Littlefoot froze with 1 foot raised over the practice map. Then came a second sound, the larger predator's roar, close enough to rattle pebbles. The valley tightened. Fear wanted speed. The rules wanted time. The fast biters wanted both to fight each other. Kuro sprinted to the boundary and saw the shape of it almost too late. 1 young fast biter lay half-pinned beneath a fallen branch on the open slope, kicking wildly. Blood marked the dust. The torn-crested leader and 2 others flashed in and out of cover nearby, snapping at the larger predator whenever it lunged too close. The trapped fast biter was real. The danger was real. That did not mean the valley was safe. Littlefoot began listing. Fresh blood, real tracks, real scream, pack visible, big predator visible, wind coming toward us. Too slow, Kuro said. Everyone stared. He scraped 1 mark in the dirt. First danger. Then he pointed to the larger predator. Not the trapped fast biter, not the blood, not the pack, the biggest moving threat first. Grandpa Longneck understood. Secure the nearest danger, then read the rest. That became the rule, because there was no time to make it pretty. The adults moved children back from the open mouth. Petrie rose high and called the big predator's movement. Chomper named the scent as real but mixed with dust and panic. Littlefoot stopped reciting and placed only 3 stones. Valley, predator, trapped fast biter. Sierra looked at the map and said, "If we go for the trapped one, the big one pushes toward us. If we ignore it, the pack may scatter here." Ducky swallowed. "Both are bad." "Choose bad with teeth farther away," Kuro said. Then he ran. He did not run to rescue the fast biter. He ran to make the larger predator turn. The broad beast had one foreleg scratched raw and one eye narrowed from dust. It lunged at the trapped fast biter, jaws opening wide. Kuro slammed into the fallen branch from the side. The branch cracked, not enough to free the fast biter cleanly, but enough to shift its weight. The trapped hunter screamed and dragged one leg loose. The larger predator swung toward Kuro with a roar that smelled of rot and anger. Good. Kuro wanted its eyes. He darted backward over loose stones, letting his claws scrape sparks from rock. Petri shrieked from above, "Left, left, tail." Kuro dropped flat as the broad tail whipped over him and smashed into the already cracked branch. The trapped fast biter tore free at last and stumbled away, bleeding but alive. The torn-crested leader snapped a command. His pack did not thank Kuro. They used the opening. Two fast biters slashed at the larger predator's wounded leg while the freed one limped toward cover. The big beast turned on them, and for a moment all its hunger pointed away from the valley. That was enough. Kuro retreated to the stone line, carving a single mark as he passed. Move danger away. Not a map, not a full warning, a command short enough to survive panic. Littlefoot saw it and repeated the idea. Nearest danger first, move it away, then raid. Sierra took over before fear could make the words soft. Nearest danger first, move it away, then raid. The children shouted it together, ugly and uneven and useful. The larger predator followed the fast biter's downslope, snapping at flashes of movement. Kuro kept to its blind side, adding noise when it drifted valleyward and silence when it angled away. He did not need complex signs. Not now. Now the valley needed one living thought. Do not let the biggest teeth choose the direction. When the chase finally spilled behind the split rocks, Kuro returned limping. A stone had cut his foreleg, not deep enough for blood. The adults noticed. So did the children. Ducky took one step forward before stopping herself at the boundary. That mattered more than if she had not moved at all. She wanted to help and remembered the line anyway. "You are hurt," she said. "Small." Sierra stared at the blood. "Is that bait?" The question landed hard. Kuro looked at his own leg, then at the valley, and understood the next uncomfortable truth. Even his real pain could become a sign someone followed badly. "Could be," he said. Ducky's face fell. Grandma Longneck lowered her head. "Then we treat it like every other sign. We care and we check." That was better than comfort. Chomper sniffed from a safe distance. Fresh, Kuro's, not deep, no other scent on it. Petri watched the ridge. No movement behind him. Littlefoot marked Kuro, boundary, and safe distance with 3 pebbles. Sierra huffed, then added one more pebble for unknown, because she had learned too well to leave it out. Only after that did Grandma Longneck allow a broad leaf bundle to be pushed across the line, so Kuro could press it against the cut himself. Nobody crossed. Nobody pretended that caring erased danger. By night, the valley shortened the rules into a panic order. First danger, move it away, then raid. Everything else still mattered, but not everything came first. Kuro stayed outside the boundary with bitter leaf against his leg, listening to the rough hills. The fast biters called once, then again. One voice sounded strained. The freed young one, probably. Alive. Hostile. Useful by accident. The larger predator answered with a weary roar farther from the valley than before. Not gone, but moved. Kuro closed his eyes and repeated the new rule silently, until it felt less like words and more like motion. First danger. Move it away. Then raid. Asterisk chapter 41. The cost of first danger. The new rule worked too well. That was the problem nobody wanted to say aloud. First danger. Move it away. Then raid. By morning, even Petrie could shout it without tangling the words. Sierra liked it because it was short. Ducky liked it because everyone could remember it while scared. Littlefoot liked it less, which made Kuro pay attention. It helps when the biggest danger is obvious, Littlefoot said, staring at the rough hill's edge. But what if the first danger is what they want us to see? Kuro scraped one claw through the dirt. Then first danger is bait. Sierra groaned. Of course it is. Why would the simple rule stay simple? The fast biters answered before Kuro could. A crash came from the lower slope, loud enough to send birds screaming into the air. The larger predator burst from the brush, head low, jaws open, one wounded leg dragging just enough to make it angrier. Behind it, a young fast biter limped across the open ground, too slow, too visible. The same injured one from yesterday. The valley saw the first danger instantly. Big teeth, moving fast, coming lower. Adults shifted, children stepped back. Petrie flew up and shouted, big one down slope. The rule pulled at everyone like a rope. Kuro almost obeyed it. Then he saw the torn-crested leader watching from the far stones, not the larger predator, not the injured packmate, but the valley watchers. Waiting to see who moved. Kuro slammed his tail into the ground once. Stop! The sound cracked across the boundary. Littlefoot froze. Sierra cursed under her breath. Ducky clamped her mouth shut with both hands. The larger predator roared and kept coming. Kuro wanted to move. His body screamed for it. The rule said move danger away. His instincts agreed. That agreement itself felt suspicious. He forced himself to read one breath longer. The injured fast biter was not running randomly. It crossed the slope in a shallow curve, always staying just ahead of the larger predator, always visible from the valley mouth. It was baiting the big beast into becoming the first danger. The torn-crested leader had learned the panic order after hearing it shouted yesterday. He had turned the first step into a trap. Not first, Kuro said. Littlefoot's eyes widened. The first danger is being used. Sierra snapped. Then what do we do? Debate while it eats us. Kuro carved 3 marks fast. First danger, hidden hand, move both. Grandpa Longneck understood enough. Do not chase the roar alone. Watch what guides it. That saved them. Petrie climbed higher and looked past the obvious chase. Other fast biters near West Brush, too, waiting. There, the real danger was not the larger predator alone. It was the pack waiting for the valley to empty its western watch line. Kuro ran, but not toward the big beast. He cut west. The hidden fast biters sprang too late. One had already crept close to the brush that led toward a narrow child path. Kuro hit the ground in front of it with a snarl that tore through the morning. He did not bite. He did not need to. He drove his claws into the dirt and made a fresh cross so deep the soil folded over itself. No. The fast biter recoiled. Sierra shouted from behind the boundary, West Brush is first. Good, she had changed the rule while using it. The larger predator was still dangerous. It crashed lower, snapping at the limping bait runner. But the adults were ready now. They did not all turn toward the roar. 2 stayed with the children. 1 watched the West Brush. Grandpa Longneck moved only far enough to block the open mouth, not far enough to leave the hidden path exposed. The torn-crested leader shrieked in frustration. Kuro liked that sound. The injured fast biter stumbled for real this time. The larger predator lunged. For one breath, bait became almost death. Kuro had to choose. If he helped the fast biter, the pack learned he could be pulled by their injuries. If he ignored it, the larger predator might feed settle, and stay near the valley longer. If he attacked the bigger beast directly, he risked being the next obvious danger everyone watched. He chose the ground. Kuro slammed into a loose stone shelf below the slope. The shelf cracked and spilled rocks between the larger predator and the injured fast biter. Not enough to hurt the beast badly, enough to make it flinch, enough to make the injured runner vanish behind brush. The fast biters used the opening and fled toward the rough hills. Not grateful, never grateful, but moving away. Kuro scraped a new mark before retreating. First danger can be bait. When he returned to the boundary, his leg throbbed where yesterday's cut had reopened. Ducky saw the blood immediately. This time she did not step forward. She looked at Chomper, then at Petrie, then at Littlefoot. "Check it," she said, voice small but firm. Kuro lowered his head. Chomper sniffed. Petrie watched behind him. Littlefoot marked safe distance. Sierra added the west brush to the map because she still did not trust it, which meant she was paying attention. Only after that did Grandma Longneck send another leaf bundle across the line. The valley had cared correctly. That should not have mattered as much as it did. By sunset, the rule changed again. First danger, ask who benefits, move danger away, then read. Petrie stared at the dirt where Littlefoot wrote the shortened marks. Rule getting longer again. Only by one bite, Sierra said. Kuro looked toward the rough hills. The fast biters called once from far away. The larger predator answered, farther than before but still angry. The torn-crested leader had learned the valley's panic rule. Now the valley had learned to mistrust even its own good answers. Chapter 42. Who benefits? The valley practiced the new question until everyone hated it. Who benefits? Ducky said it while looking at a harmless pile of pebbles. Petrie said it while watching a bent fern. Sierra said it with increasing irritation at anything that moved, did not move, smelled strange, smelled normal, or existed too close to a bush. Who benefits from this leaf? She demanded at one point. Littlefoot sighed, probably the tree. Even Kuro huffed at that. The small laugh helped. The rules had been pressing the children thin. Too much fear made every shadow important. Too many important shadows made the mind tired. A tired mind followed the loudest sign. That was what the fast biters tried next. They sent no roar first, no scream, no blood, no obvious mark. Instead, near late afternoon, the rough hills went silent. Not normal silence, no small runners, no wing beats, no distant scraping claws, the kind of silence that made the valley lean forward without meaning to. Petrie noticed first, quiet wrong. Chomper sniffed, no fresh scent, whined away from us. Littlefoot placed 3 pebbles, valley, rough hills, unknown. Sierra stared at the silent slope. Who benefits if we keep watching nothing? Kuro turned before she finished. The answer came from behind them. A stone rolled near the southern boundary. Tiny sound. Almost nothing. A child might have dismissed it. A tired watcher might have missed it entirely because the silence in the rough hills felt bigger. Kuro did not miss it. He crossed the inner side of the boundary at a run, staying outside the valley but shifting to the south line. Petrie followed overhead. Littlefoot and Sierra moved with the map stones. Ducky stayed beside Chomper, repeating, "Quiet can point too, yep, yep, yep." At the southern brush, the fast biters had made no sign at all. That was the sign. A strip of ground had been carefully cleaned of tracks. Too clean, leaves brushed flat, dust smoothed, no scent except old grass. The pack had learned that marks could betray them, so they had made absence into bait. Kuro studied the blank patch and felt his lip curl. The torn-crested leader was becoming irritatingly clever. Sierra stopped behind the safe line. Nothing is there. Littlefoot shook his head. Nothing is missing wrong. Good. Kuro scraped a circle in the dirt and left its center empty. Missing sign. Then he pointed to the southern brush. Petri rose higher. Two fast biters, low, behind dead tree. The ambush broke at once. Two lean shapes sprang from cover, not at the children, not directly, but toward a narrow gap where a smaller dinosaur might flee if startled. They were not attacking the valley. They were shaping fear again. Kuro hit the gap first. He planted himself between the fast biters and the path, body low, claws spread. The old hunger in him liked the way they stopped. It liked their hesitation. It liked knowing he was bigger and stranger and built for terrible speed. He shoved that feeling down. No chase. That rule did not need words anymore. The fast biters split, one left, one right. Kuro did not follow either. He slammed his tail into the dust behind him, blocking the gap with sound and motion, while Sira shouted, "Do not run through. Gap is what they want." A young swimmer who had started to bolt froze and ducked under Grandma Longneck's shadow instead. The trap failed. The torn-crested leader appeared on a far stone, just long enough to show that he had seen it fail. Then the larger predator roared from the rough hills. The silence had not meant it was gone. It had meant the smaller creatures had already fled. Now it came downslope slower than before, wounded leg stiff, broad head sweeping side to side. It was learning less cleverly than the fast biters, but it was learning. It no longer charged at the first flash of movement. It watched for patterns. That made it worse. Kuro scraped the panic order. First danger, who benefits, move it away, then read. This time the children did not recite. They acted. Petri tracked the big predator from above. Chomper named the wind as unhelpful because it carried scent away from the valley. Littlefoot marked the southern gap as unsafe. Ducky marked the missing sign patch. Sira kept shouting at anyone who looked ready to run the obvious way. The adults moved like a wall with spaces in it. Enough room for children to retreat, not enough for panic to choose the path. Kuro ran parallel to the larger predator, not toward it. He used stones, broken branches, and one sharp hiss to keep its head turning toward the rougher ground. When it tried to angle south, toward the failed ambush gap, he struck a dead log and sent dry splinters cracking across its path. The beast roared, startled, and turned uphill. The fast biters were waiting there. Not for Kuro. For the predator. They flashed at its wounded leg again, drawing it away because away served them too. The torn-crested leader did not look at the valley this time. He looked at the silent hill, the missing tracks, the failed gap, and then at Kuro. Kuro could almost see the next lesson, forming behind that milky eye. Absence had failed. Something else would come. When the danger moved off, the valley stayed quiet for several long breaths. Then Ducky walked to the practice dirt and drew an empty circle like Kuro had made. "Missing can mean something," she said. Littlefoot added 3 pebbles around it, but only if it is missing wrong. Sira added a hard line across the narrow gap, and if a path is too easy, it is probably chosen by someone else. Kuro nodded. The new rule did not get a neat sentence. It became a question added beneath the others. Who benefits from what is missing? Petri groaned. Question now has question. Good, Kuro said. He expected Sira to complain. Instead, she looked at the southern brush and said, I hate that it helped. That was survival, Kuro thought, hating the right useful thing and using it anyway. Night settled with the rough hills restless, and the southern boundary watched by 3 readers instead of 1. The valley had learned to read signs. Now it was learning to read silence. Asterisk chapter 43. When every answer helps someone, asterisk. By the 3rd day of watching the southern boundary, everyone was tired. Tired made the rules heavier. Littlefoot moved pebbles with slower feet. Ducky forgot the order of fresh, old, and uncertain twice, then looked ready to cry because forgetting a practice rule now felt like opening a door. Petrie stayed in the air too long and landed shaking. Even Sira snapped less, which worried Kuro more than her anger ever had. The fast biters waited until the valley was worn thin. They did not roar, they did not scream, they did not leave a false mark. They left two true signs at once. The first was a fresh set of fast biter tracks near the southern brush, angled away from the valley. The second was a smear of larger predator scent near the rough hills path, also angled away from the valley. Both were real. Both were fresh. Both pointed to danger leaving. That should have been good. Sira stared at them and said, I hate good signs now. Kuro agreed. Littlefoot built the two signs in the practice dirt, tracks south, scent east. Ducky added an unknown circle between them. Petrie watched from above and called no movement. Chomper sniffed until his nose wrinkled. Both true, Chomper said. Both leaving. Who benefits? Ducky asked immediately. No one answered. That was the trap. If the valley relaxed because both dangers seemed to leave, the fast biters benefited. If the valley split watchers between two leaving trails, the larger predator benefited. If Kuro chased one sign to prove it, the other side benefited. Every answer helped someone. Kuro scraped a hard line through the dirt. No answer yet. Petrie groaned from his branch, but doing nothing also answer. Kuro looked up. Correct. The torn-crested leader appeared on a distant stone as if he had heard. He stood beside the southern tracks, not hiding, not charging. His injured young packmate limped behind him. The message was plain enough. We are leaving. Maybe true. Maybe bait. The larger predator roared from the east, where its scent trail pointed. Farther than before, still real. Grandpa Longneck shifted his weight. We cannot hold every watcher everywhere forever. That was another truth with teeth. Kuro looked at the tired children, then at the adults trying to cover every gap. Too many rules had become too many eyes pointed in too many directions. The valley could not become a stone wall. Living things had to move, sleep, drink, blink. So he made a different kind of sign. Not danger. Not path. Priority. He placed one stone for the valley mouth, one for the southern brush, one for the rough hills path. Then he pushed the valley mouth stone closest to the children. Protect what cannot move first. Littlefoot understood slowly. We do not have to solve both leaving signs. We have to decide what we protect while we are unsure. Sira looked relieved and annoyed by being relieved. Children and exits first, then water, then everything else. Grandma Longneck nodded. A watch order. The fast biters did not like that. Kuro could tell because the torn-crested leader stepped down from his stone and vanished into brush without waiting to be admired. The pack had wanted the valley to chase certainty. Instead, the valley chose protection. The test came before sunset. The larger predators' roar moved farther east. The southern tracks stayed quiet. The watchers began to settle into the new order. Young ones guarded, exits held, water path checked by 3 readers. For a few breaths, the valley felt almost steady. Then a small runner, outside the main herd, bolted toward the wrong gap. Not because of a mark, not because of scent, because exhaustion had made him forget where safety was. Sira saw him first. Stop. He did not. Kuro moved. He did not chase straight at the child. That would drive panic faster. He cut wide, slammed his claws into the dirt beyond the gap, and made himself a wall where the runner thought escape waited. The child skidded, squealed, and turned back toward the adult shadows. At the same moment, 2 fast biters flashed near the southern brush. They had not been leaving. They had been waiting for tiredness to do what fear could not. The valley did not break. The new watch order held. Adults guarded exits first. Petrie called the fast biters' path. Littlefoot moved the southern stone, but did not abandon the valley mouth stone. Ducky shouted, "Protect what cannot move," so loudly her voice cracked. Kuro struck the ground between the fast biters and the gap. No chase, no bite, just denial. The pack retreated almost immediately. That made the attack more frightening, not less. They had not wanted a kill at any cost. They had wanted proof of weakness. They had found tiredness. They had not found collapse. Afterward, the small runner shook beneath his mother's neck, while everyone pretended not to stare. Sira stood near him, angry in the protective way she got when fear had nowhere useful to go. "He forgot," she said quietly. "Tired," Kuro answered. Littlefoot placed a new pebble beside the watch order. "Rest." Nobody laughed. Nobody complained. Rest became part of survival before nightfall. Watchers changed sooner. Children practiced fewer rules at once. A tired reader had to say they were tired, and saying it did not make them weak. It made the map more honest. Kuro stayed outside the boundary, while the valley settled. They practiced the watch order once before dark, not because anyone wanted to, but because the failed gap had proved wanting did not matter. Littlefoot placed the child stone first every time. Sira placed exits second, then water, then distant trails. Ducky added a rest pebble beside each watcher and moved it when someone switched out. Petri complained until his replacement took the sky, and he realized the rule meant he could actually land. Kuro watched the small map become less clever and more useful. That was the point. Clever rules impressed nobody if tired children could not use them. Across the dark, the torn-crested leader called once. Not frustrated this time. Interested. Kuro scraped the new lesson into dirt and erased it before anyone could turn it into another heavy rule. Protect first. Rest counts. Then raid. Asterisk chapter 44. Rest counts. The valley hated admitting tiredness more than it hated admitting fear. Fear sounded heroic if spoken correctly. Tired sounded small. That made it dangerous. By morning, Grandma Longneck had ordered shorter watches. Sira's father argued until he yawned in the middle of saying he was not tired. That ended the argument so completely that even Sira looked impressed. Kuro watched from beyond the boundary and approved. A tired guard saw what they expected. A tired child followed the clearest path, even if someone else had chosen it. A tired predator made mistakes too, but Kuro did not plan to rely on enemy exhaustion while ignoring their own. The fast biters tested the new rest rule with patience. All morning, nothing happened. That was not peace, that was pressure. Every quiet moment made the watchers wonder whether they had switched too soon, rested too long, or missed the sign that would have proved they were needed. The torn-crested leader did not show himself. The larger predator did not roar. Even the birds returned in cautious bursts. Petri hated it. Quiet doing quiet again. Then we read quiet, Littlefoot said. Me tired of reading quiet. That is why you switch, Ducky said, and sounded proud of remembering. The first switch happened cleanly. Petri came down. Another flyer took the ridge. Littlefoot stepped back from the practice dirt while Sira took his place. Ducky rested beside Spike with her eyes still open until Grandma Longneck told her resting meant actually resting. Kuro expected the attack then. It did not come. The fast biters waited until the second switch, when everyone felt foolish for being careful. A mark appeared at the water path. No one saw it made. That was the worst part. One moment the flat stone beside the reeds was blank. The next, 3 shallow scratches pointed toward clean water, and a fourth mark beside them looked almost like Kuro's unknown circle. Almost. Sira, newly on duty, and determined to prove she was not tired, stepped closer. Then stopped. "This is annoying," she said. "Good." Annoyance had saved her from pride. She called the readers instead of deciding alone. Littlefoot came back but did not take over. Ducky looked from a distance. Chomper sniffed from inside the line. Petrie, supposedly resting, raised his head until Spike gently leaned against him and pinned him back down. The mark was fresh, the water was real, the unknown circle was wrong. Not useless, wrong. Kuro studied it from beyond the reeds. His unknown circle had open space inside it. This one had a tiny nick at the edge, turning it almost into an eye. A watcher mark. The fast biters had marked not danger, but attention. Someone is watching here. Chomper shivered. Leader scent, very light. Littlefoot looked at the reeds. He wants us to know he can mark during switches. Or wants us to stop switching, Sierra said. There it was. Who benefits? If the valley panicked and ended rest, the fast biters benefited. If they ignored the mark, the pack learned switches were easy. If they sent too many readers to every small change, exhaustion returned by another road. Kuro scraped the dirt once. Small answer for small sign. Sierra blinked. That is new. It had to be. Not every sign deserved the whole valley's fear. They handled it with one rested reader, one scent check, and one sky check. No crowd, no shouting, no spreading panic through every nest and herd. Littlefoot watched Sierra work instead of replacing her. Ducky confirmed the shape. Chomper confirmed the scent was light and not mixed with blood. The flyer above confirmed no movement in the reeds. Then Sierra erased the mark herself. Carefully, proudly. Kuro almost smiled. The fast biters answered with a sharp call from the far brush. Irritated, not alarmed. The test had failed, but not badly enough to hurt them. That was the rhythm now. Little tests, small lies, true things bent at the edges. The pack was no longer trying only to break the valley. It was trying to train the valley into breaking itself. The larger predator returned in the afternoon. Not with a roar, with smell. Chomper caught it first. Old rot, wet stone, wounded skin. The broad predator was downwind, moving slowly near the rough hills path. No rush, no charge. It had learned that sudden movement brought fast biters and Kuro. Now it waited like heavy weather. The valley wanted to tighten, every watch again. Kuro saw it ripple through them. Adults standing too tall, children glancing toward resting places, Petrie trying to wriggle out from under Spike. Sierra stamped once. No, small answer for small sign, big answer for big danger. Rested watchers stay useful. Grandma Longneck looked at her with quiet approval. Sierra pretended not to see it. They strengthened the Rough Hills watch without waking everyone. They moved the youngest farther from that side. They left the water path on normal watch because the water mark had already been answered. The valley did not become frantic. The fast biters showed themselves at dusk, just beyond the far stones. The torn-crested leader stared at the rested watch line, the erased water mark, the guarded children, and Kuro outside the boundary. His injured young packmate stood behind him, favoring one leg but alive. For the first time in days, the leader did not make a sign. He watched instead. Kuro watched back. Sometimes looking was the whole message. Night came slowly. The larger predator stayed distant. The fast biters faded into the rough hills. The valley kept its watches short and its panic contained. Before sleeping, Littlefoot added one more line to the practice dirt. Small answer for small sign. Ducky yawned, and rest counts. Petrie, already half asleep against Spike, mumbled, rest count best rule. Kuro stayed at the boundary until the stars brightened. The enemies had learned to attack attention. The valley had learned not every warning deserved all of it. Asterisk chapter 45. Small signs grow. The next warning was so small that Sierra almost stepped on it. One bent reed beside the water path. Not broken, not scratched, not marked with scent. Just bent, its pale underside turned toward the valley like a tiny tongue. The morning watch had changed cleanly. The rested flyer above saw nothing moving. Chomper smelled only water, mud, and old leaf rot. Littlefoot looked at the reed, then at Kuro, and frowned. Small sign, Sira said. Small answer. That was the rule. Kuro did not move. The rule was good. That did not mean the reed was harmless. Ducky crouched, careful not to cross the safe line. It is bent away from the water, not toward it. Reeds usually bend toward water when swimmers brush past. Yep, yep, yep. Petrie circled once. No tracks, no big thing, just reed. Littlefoot placed one pebble for the reed and one for the water path. Who benefits if we ignore it? Sira sighed, and here I thought we had a small answer. Kuro scraped one claw through the dirt. Answer small, watch wide. A small sign did not deserve the whole valley. It did deserve the right eyes. So they answered small. Ducky read the reed. Chomper checked scent. Petrie watched the water path from above. The adults did not rush. The children did not gather. The valley kept resting. For several breaths, nothing happened. Then the water moved wrong. Not near the reed. Farther downstream, where the bank curved toward a shallow drinking place, a ripple slid against the current, too smooth, too deliberate. Kuro's head snapped toward it. Petrie saw it a heartbeat later. Something in water, low. The fast biters were not in the water. They hated moving through it too much for that. But they had pushed a dead branch into the current from upstream, letting it drift toward the drinking place. Tied to the branch with vine was a strip of bark. A carried sign, but carried by water. Sira's mouth opened. Oh, come on. The bark bumped against the shallow bank and turned. 3 scratches pointed toward the safe drinking stones. A lie delivered without feet, without scent, without a visible enemy. Small sign had grown teeth. Kuro lunged along the bank and pinned the branch before it could drift farther. He crushed the bark under one claw, then shoved the whole branch out of the current. No chase, no roar, just removal. Too easy. He looked upstream. The torn-crested leader stood half-hidden in reeds beyond the bend, watching. Not disappointed. That meant the floating bark had not been the attack. It had been the question. What will you do when a small sign grows? The answer came from the drinking place. A young swimmer, seeing Kuro move, had turned away from the water and toward the brush path behind her. The brush path looked safe. It was shaded, familiar, and close to the adults. It was also where one fast biter waited. Ducky screamed first. Kuro moved, but Sira was closer to the line. She slammed her body sideways into the young swimmer, knocking her back toward the open ground. The fast biter sprang from the brush and snapped at empty air. Grandma Longneck's tail came down between predator and child, like a falling tree. The fast biter retreated before Kuro reached it. The valley did not scatter. That mattered. The old valley would have chased the visible threat, crowded the water, shouted over itself. This valley held its watch order. Littlefoot marked reed, current, bark, brush. Petrie called the retreating fast biter. Chomper named no blood, no injury, no seconds sent near the child. Sira stood breathing hard beside the swimmer. Small sign, she snapped, can be first bite. Kuro nodded. The torn-crested leader vanished upstream. The larger predator did not appear. That was almost worse. The fast biters had run a test without needing the big beast at all. They had learned to use water, attention, and the valley's own restraint. By afternoon, the rule changed again, but this time it became clearer instead of heavier. Small answer for small sign. Watch wide for what changes. The children practiced with pebbles and leaves, a bent reed, a floating twig, a shadow moving because a cloud passed overhead. Most small things stayed small. A few changed something else. Those were the ones that mattered. Littlefoot called them growing signs. Sira hated the name, which meant everyone kept it. The practice looked silly until it did not. Littlefoot bent one reed and asked what changed. Ducky dropped one leaf into a puddle and watched where every eye went. Petrie pushed a twig from above and called out when its shadow moved before the twig did. Sira stood by the brush path with narrowed eyes, daring anyone to call it too much work. Most small signs died small. A bent reed straightened, a leaf stuck in mud, a twig rolled nowhere useful. But every so often, something changed a path. A swimmer stepped around a puddle and moved closer to brush. A watcher looked downstream and forgot upstream. A flyer dipped lower to inspect a harmless twig and lost sight of the ridge. Those were growing signs. Kuro made them stop after each one and name the growth before naming the danger. Not because names solved it, but because unnamed change moved faster than thought. At sunset, Kuro returned to the water path. The reed had straightened a little, no longer pointing like a warning. The current moved normally. The brush path held no scent except trampled fear and Sira's angry footprints. Ducky placed a pebble beside the reed and then moved it downstream, following where the floating bark had gone. The sign was not only where it started, she said. It was where it made us look away from too. Good. Kuro scraped a short mark into the mud. Start, change, bite. Then he erased it before the water could carry it anywhere. Across the bend, one fast biter call rose from the reeds, sharp, curious, unfinished. The pack had learned to make small signs grow. The valley had learned to watch the growth. Asterisk chapter 46. The growth no one saw asterisk. The valley became very good watching small things. Too good. By morning, every bent reed had 3 suspicious faces staring at it. Every floating leaf earned a sky check. Every twig near the water path was treated like it might become a trap if ignored long enough. Petrie claimed he could feel pebbles judging him. Kuro let the complaint stand. The danger was not that they were careful. The danger was that careful eyes could still look too close. The fast biters proved it with dust. No reed bent, no branch floated, no scent painted the wind. A faint grey powder lay across a flat stone near the old water path, so thin it looked like morning dryness. Sira saw it first and stopped with one foot lifted. Small sign, she said. Ducky crouched, very small. Chomper sniffed and sneezed hard enough to stumble backward. That was enough. Kuro snapped his tail once. Stop. The sneeze carried farther than the dust. Birds burst from the reeds. A young swimmer turned toward the sound. Petrie dipped lower to see Chomper. Littlefoot moved one step closer to the stone. The sign grew without moving. Not through water, not through a carried mark, through reaction. Kuro scraped 3 marks in the dirt. Sign, reaction, bite. Then the bite came. A fast biter lunged from the far reeds, not at Chomper, not at the dusty stone, but at the young swimmer whose attention had turned toward the sneeze. Grandma Longneck blocked the path before Kuro reached it, her tail sweeping down like a wall. The fast biter twisted away and vanished. No injury. Still a success for the enemy. They had made the valley move with almost nothing. Sira stared at the dust with open hatred. It attacked because Chomper sneezed. Because we all looked, Littlefoot said. Kuro nodded. The torn-crested leader appeared beyond the reeds for one breath. His milky eye fixed on Chomper, then on the scattered birds, then on the watchers who had shifted out of place. He was counting reactions now. That was worse than counting signs. The valley changed practice again, but this time Kuro refused to add a long rule. Long rules were becoming food for the pack. He scratched only 2 words into mud. Hold shape. Littlefoot studied them. When a small sign changes something, we keep the watch shape first. Even if someone sneezes, Petrie asked. Chomper looked offended. I did not choose to sneeze. Especially then, Sira said. They practiced with harmless surprises. A dropped pebble, a sudden wing beat, Spike stepping on a dry stick by accident. Each time, the readers named what changed, but the watchers held their places unless the protected order demanded movement. It was hard. Ducky turned her head every time. Petrie flinched upward. Sierra overcorrected and refused to look at anything until Littlefoot pointed out that stubbornness was not the same as discipline. Kuro approved of that argument. It meant they were learning the difference between fear and shape. They made the practice uglier after that. Nobody liked surprise practice, which was exactly why Kuro used it. He snapped twigs when nobody expected it. Petrie dropped pebbles into shallow water. Chomper shook dust from a leaf and then apologized before anyone could glare at him. Each small shock made bodies want to turn, flinch, gather, shout. Hold shape did not mean ignore. That was the hard part. Ignoring was easy for stubborn people and impossible for frightened ones. Holding shape meant one reader checked while the others kept their promises. Ducky watched the young swimmers. Sierra watched the brush. Petrie watched above. Littlefoot watched the map of who was watching. By the sixth surprise, the valley no longer moved like spilled water. It moved like roots. Kuro did not tell them that. Compliments were strange tools. Used too often, they made creatures look for praise instead of danger. Used too little, they made tired hearts brittle. So he gave one short nod, when Ducky kept her eyes on the swimmers, despite a pebble splash behind her. She saw it. That was enough. Near sunset, the fast biters tried the dust again. This time, Chomper sneezed and stepped back without everyone turning. Petrie called from above but held his height. Littlefoot marked reaction, not just sign. Ducky kept her eyes on the young swimmers instead of the dust. The reeds trembled where the hidden fast biter waited for a gap that did not open. No gap came. The hunter withdrew unseen by most of the valley. Kuro saw it. So did Sierra. She smiled in a way that promised future trouble for anything hiding in reeds. The adults learned slower, but not because they were foolish. They had more bodies to protect and more old habits to fight. When the second dust test came, Sierra's father started toward Chomper before catching himself. His claws dug into the dirt hard enough to leave crescents. Kuro noticed. So did Sierra. She did not tease him. That was how Kuro knew the lesson had become serious. Grandpa Longneck named the failure without shame. I moved inside my head before I moved my feet. That became aloud too, saying the almost mistake. A watcher who admitted the pull of a sign gave the others a chance to brace before the body followed. That night, the valley kept the new words short. Hold shape. Small signs could grow through movement, sound, and attention. The answer was not to freeze forever. The answer was to keep the valley's protective shape while deciding what the sign had changed. Kuro stood outside the boundary, listening to the reeds. His own body wanted to turn toward every tiny sound too, which made the lesson less embarrassing for everyone else and more dangerous for him. He held shape too, claws still. The reeds kept whispering anyway. The pack had learned to count reactions. The valley had learned not to give them so many. Asterisk chapter 47, the shape they held. The larger predator returned, while everyone was practicing restraint. That seemed unfair. Sierra said so immediately. The broad beast did not charge from the rough hills this time. It appeared slowly between split rocks, head low, wounded leg stiff, patient in a way it had not been before. The fast biters had taught it caution by hurting it. Kuro disliked that. A reckless monster could be steered. A patient one had to be read. Petrie spotted it first and nearly broke shape. He rose 2 wingbeats too high, caught himself and shouted, "Big danger. Holding shape, big danger." Not elegant. Useful. The valley moved into the practiced order, young ones inward, exits watched, water path held, resting watchers awake but not rushing. Chomper checked wind. Littlefoot built a quick map. Ducky counted who had moved and who had not. Sierra watched the reeds. Kuro watched Sira, watching the reeds. Good. The larger predator was the obvious danger. That made it suspect. The fast biters had used first danger before. They had used silence, scent, water, dust, and true signs. They had not stopped being clever just because a bigger threat had arrived. Kuro searched for the second change. He found it near the water path, 3 tiny ripples moving against the current. Not a branch this time. Pebbles. Someone upstream was dropping small stones into the water, one by one, each ripple nudging eyes away from the rough hills. A small sign trying to grow, while the big danger held attention. Kuro snapped his tail once. Sira answered before he marked it. Water is being used again. Do not turn all at once. The valley held shape. Only Ducky, Chomper, and the Water Watcher checked the ripples. Everyone else stayed with the larger predator. That was the first victory. The second came when the fast biter sprang from the reeds and found no open child path. It stopped, confused for half a breath. Kuro used that half breath. He crossed the outside line and struck the ground between the fast biter and the water path, claws carving a deep warning into mud. The hunter recoiled, but Kuro did not chase. Chasing would bend the shape. Instead, he stayed where the gap would have been. Before the beast reached the lower stones, Littlefoot almost overcorrected. He kept his eyes on the map so hard he missed Petrie's second call. Sira caught it and snapped his name. Littlefoot jerked, embarrassed, and Kuro saw the danger in that too. Hold shape could become staring at one duty until the rest of the world vanished. Kuro scraped a quick mark with his hind claw. Shape breathes. Littlefoot stared at it for only a heartbeat, then shifted one pebble without moving the whole map. The watch order changed slightly. Not broken, not frozen, alive. Grandma Longneck saw and adjusted her stance, opening space for a smaller adult to cover the water path while she kept the valley mouth blocked. Ducky counted the change aloud. Chomper confirmed no new scent at the reeds. Sira muttered that apparently even rules needed to breathe now. Yes. A shape that could not bend would snap. The larger predator roared. It had reached the lower stones. Grandpa Longneck moved to block the valley mouth, but only halfway, leaving other adults in place. The shape flexed without breaking. The torn-crested leader appeared upstream, one claw resting on another pebble. Kuro bared his teeth. The leader dropped the pebble anyway. One ripple. Small. Ignored by most. The leader's mouth closed. For the first time in many days, he looked uncertain. Then the larger predator lunged at the motion nearest it, Kuro. Kuro had expected that. He ran sideways along the mud, staying outside the valley line, drawing the beast's head away from Grandpa Longneck and toward the split stones. Petrie called distance from above. Littlefoot shifted the map without moving the child's stones. Sira kept yelling at the reeds because she trusted the big danger to be loud and the smaller danger to be mean. The fast biters made their choice. They attacked the larger predator's wounded leg, not to save Kuro, not to help the valley, but because the beast had come too close to their own escape route. Their interests overlapped for less than a minute. Less than a minute was enough. Kuro slammed his tail against a hollow log. The sound pulled the larger predator's head toward the rough stones. The fast biters cut across its flank. The valley held shape. Together, unwillingly, they bent the danger away. When the beast finally retreated, it did not roar. It breathed hard, low and ugly, and limped back toward the split rocks with the fast biters shadowing it from a distance. No one cheered. Cheering broke shape too soon. Only after Petrie called the ridge clear did the valley loosen. Ducky sat down hard. I did not look at all the ripples. I wanted to, but I did not. Good, Kuro said. Sira glanced at him. That might be the first time not looking was brave. Littlefoot placed the final stones in the dirt. Big danger, small growth, held shape. Then he added one more stone outside the valley line for Kuro. Kuro looked at it. Littlefoot did not move it inside. Good. The boundary remained honest. Afterward, Littlefoot rebuilt the whole fight in pebbles and then deliberately moved one stone too late. The mistake made the map ugly. It also made everyone see where panic would have entered. There, he said, if I freeze here, the water path opens. Ducky placed a second pebble beside it. Then someone must say your name. Yep, yep, yep. Sierra looked uncomfortable, then said, I did. It worked. The admission was small. It mattered anyway. Kuro watched them turn correction into part of the shape instead of proof someone had failed. That was stronger than perfect watching. Perfect watching broke the first time someone blinked. By dusk, the new lesson had no new sentence. It did not need one. Hold shape had survived a real attack. Small signs had stayed small because the valley refused to feed them every eye. Across the water, the torn-crested leader watched from reeds darkened by sunset. He had learned something too. Kuro could feel it in the stillness. The next trap would not ask the valley to look. It would ask the valley what it could afford not to see. Asterisk chapter 48. What they did not watch asterisk. The next trap began with something everyone chose not to see. That was the cruel part. The valley had learned not to feed every small sign with every eye. It had learned to hold shape, to let one reader check while others kept their promises. That lesson saved them from ripples, dust, bent reeds, and sudden cries. So the fast biters gave them something worth ignoring. A harmless lizard skittered across the southern stones just after morning watch changed. Tiny claws, tiny body, no blood, no strange scent, no mark tied to its tail. Petrie saw it from above and called, small runner only. Small answer. The valley held shape. Good. Kuro watched the lizard vanish under a root and felt his scales tighten. Not because the lizard mattered. Because the torn-crested leader had been teaching them that everything could matter, and then teaching them that not everything should. The next lesson had to be about choosing wrong. Littlefoot noticed Kuro's stillness. You think it is a sign? Maybe. Sierra groaned. A lizard is allowed to be a lizard. Yes, Kuro said. That was what made it dangerous. They did not break shape. Kuro would not let them. Instead, he made one small mark beside the practice dirt, ignored. Then he placed a second mark beside it, remembered. Ducky understood first. We do not stare at it, but we do not forget it. Good. The lizard did nothing. The morning stayed quiet. The larger predator did not roar. The fast biters did not show themselves. By midday, even Kuro began to wonder whether suspicion had become its own trap. Then Chomper sneezed. Not dust this time, pollen. The sneeze was real, harmless, and annoying. Everyone held shape. No one turned too fast. No gap opened. The fast biters attacked anyway. Not near Chomper, not near the water, near the root where the lizard had vanished hours earlier. The root lifted. It was not a root. It was a strip of dead vine pulled from below by a hidden fast biter, opening a narrow crawl gap under the southern brush. The lizard had not been bait. It had been proof the gap existed and could fit something small. The valley had correctly ignored the lizard and failed to remember what it proved. Kuro moved before the first fast biter came through. He slammed both claws into the ground above the crawl gap. The tunnel collapsed in a burst of dust and root fragments. A fast biter shrieked beneath the brush, trapped for half a breath, then clawed backward out of sight. Sierra stared. That was under us. Near us, Littlefoot said, shaken. Close enough. Petrie landed hard on a stone. Me saw lizard. Me said only lizard. Was only lizard, Kuro said. Petrie looked miserable. Then me wrong how. Kuro scraped the two marks again. Ignored, remembered. Littlefoot swallowed. We did not need to watch it forever. We needed to remember where it went. The rule that came from it was smaller than the fear around it. Ignored signs left memory stones. Nothing dramatic, no crowd, no panic. If a reader decided a small thing did not deserve attention, they placed one memory stone on the practice map. Later, when danger moved, the valley checked whether any ignored small thing had changed what the map meant. Sarah liked the rule after she realized it let her stop staring at stupid leaves, without pretending stupid leaves had never existed. The first few memory stones were awkward. Petrie placed his too close to the wrong bush. Ducky placed 3 because she remembered 3 different things about the same lizard and refused to choose. Sarah placed hers with enough force to bury it halfway in dirt. Littlefoot had to make them start over, which earned him 3 separate complaints and 1 approving look from Grandma Longneck. Kuro let them argue. Argument was not failure if the shape improved afterward. The old 3-reader rule had taught them that a memory stone was not proof, it was a hook. Later, when danger moved, the hook might catch meaning. They practiced by ignoring harmless things on purpose. A beetle under a leaf, a bent grass stem, a falling seed. Each got 1 memory stone and no more attention unless something changed. The valley slowly learned the difference between forgetting and refusing to stare. The fast biters hated it immediately. By afternoon, the torn-crested leader showed himself near the collapsed crawl gap. Dirt clung to one side of his jaw. His milky eye fixed on the memory stone Littlefoot had placed beside the southern brush. He understood what it meant. Kuro bared his teeth. Not every ignored thing was forgotten now. Sarah tested the rule by trying to trick it. She pointed at a perfectly ordinary stone and asked whether it needed memory. Littlefoot said no, because nothing had moved through it, under it, or around it. Ducky pointed at a feather and said yes because Petrie had dropped it while checking the southern brush. Petrie objected that his feathers were not suspicious. Chomper sniffed it and declared it mostly embarrassing. Kuro let that stay too. Embarrassment was better than panic. If they could laugh and still place the right stone, the rule might survive fear. By the time the sun leaned west, the practice dirt looked cluttered enough that Petrie called it a rock nest. Kuro preferred clutter to confidence. Confidence forgot the lizard. Clutter remembered without staring. The larger predator roared late in the day, far from the rough hills and closer to the eastern wash. The sound pulled eyes. This time, Littlefoot glanced first at the memory stones before moving the danger map. Lizard Gap, Water Bend, Southern Brush, Reed Path. Nothing shifted unseen. The valley moved carefully, not perfectly. Perfect was a lie. Carefully was enough. That night, Kuro erased the lesson after everyone had copied it into memory. Ignore if small. Remember where. Then read what changes. Asterisk chapter 49, Memory Stones. The memory stones made the valley look messier. Kuro liked that. Clean maps lied by accident. A clean map showed what everyone agreed mattered. A messy map showed what someone had decided not to watch but refused to forget. By morning, Littlefoot's practice dirt held stones for the Lizard Gap, the Reed Path, the Water Bend, the West Brush, the Dust Stone, and 3 places Sarah called probably nothing while placing stones anyway. Petrie hated flying over it. Map looks sick. Map looks honest, Littlefoot said. Sarah snorted. Honest things are ugly lately. The fast biters tested the stones with mercy. Fake mercy. A young fast biter limped into view near the Rough Hills path, the same injured one from before. It moved slowly, head low, tail dragging. No larger predator chased it. No packmate guarded it. It looked alone. That was new. Ducky made a small sound before catching herself. Chomper sniffed from inside the line and frowned. Real blood, he said. Real tired. Sarah looked at Kuro. Who benefits if we care? Kuro did not answer quickly. That mattered. Some traps worked because they resembled good things too closely. If every mercy became bait, the valley would survive smaller and meaner until survival itself became another kind of loss. The injured fast biter stumbled beside a stone marker Kuro remembered from an older route. Memory stone, rough path, pack movement, larger predator nearby last time. Littlefoot saw it too. He placed a pebble beside the injured fast biter on the map, then linked it to the old rough path stone. If we go out bad, he said. If it comes here bad, if the big predator follows it worse. The injured fast biter took another step and collapsed. No one moved. That was good. No one looked happy about it. That was better. Kuro crossed outside the boundary alone. He did not approach the fast biter directly. He circled wide, reading wind, stones, brush, and old memory marks. The torn-crested leader was not visible. That meant nothing. The pack was better than visible now. Kuro found the trap behind the injured one, 3 hidden scrape marks under a shelf of stone, angled toward a blind dip. Not for the valley, for the larger predator. A scent smear of blood led from the injured fast biter toward the dip, then away from the valley. The injured one was bait. But not for them. The pack was trying to pull the larger predator into the blind dip and maybe kill it, wound it, or at least drive it away. If the valley interfered, the plan failed. If the valley ignored everything, the larger predator might follow the blood too close before turning. Every answer helped someone again. Kuro scraped one mark into dirt where the valley readers could see. Enemy trap, not ours, watch edge. Littlefoot repeated it aloud. Sierra looked offended by how useful the enemy trap might be. The hardest part was explaining why doing nothing was not the same as doing nothing. Ducky wanted to help the injured fast biter because pain was pain. Sierra wanted to let the larger predator eat it because enemy was enemy. Littlefoot hated both answers because both were too clean. Kuro watched them circle the problem and thought the messy map had finally become honest enough to hurt. We guard the valley, Littlefoot said at last. And watch the trap, Sierra added. And do not step into it unless it steps into us, Ducky finished, sounding unhappy but steady. Kuro tapped the dirt once. Good. Mercy without reading became bait. Cruelty without reading became blindness. The valley needed neither. It needed the harder thing, care with a boundary. The larger predator roared from the rough path. The injured fast biter lifted its head, not helpless, waiting. Kuro retreated to the valley side of the outer stones, but stayed outside the boundary. He would not rescue the bait. He would not ruin the trap. He would not let the valley become part of it. That was an ugly choice. The larger predator came limping into view, drawn by blood and anger. It followed the smear toward the blind dip. The injured fast biter sprang up at the last moment and scrambled aside faster than its limp had promised. Sierra hissed, "Fake worse than I thought." "Real injury," Chomper said. "Fake helpless." The broad predator lunged into the dip. The fast biter pack exploded from both sides. Dust, teeth, and screams filled the rough path. Kuro held the valley line. Petrie tracked the fight from high above. Littlefoot kept the memory stones in place. Ducky watched the young ones instead of the violence. Sierra watched Kuro, maybe to make sure he did not join the wrong fight. He did not. The larger predator tore free wounded and furious, but it fled away from the valley. The fast biters did not chase far. Their injured young one limped for real now, supported by a packmate's shoulder for 3 steps before snarling and standing alone. The torn-crested leader finally looked toward Kuro. No thanks. No truce. Only recognition that Kuro had understood and stayed out of the way. That was almost worse than hatred. When the dust settled, Ducky quietly moved the injured fast biter stone away from the child's stones, but did not remove it. Sierra watched her do it and said nothing. That silence was kinder than agreement. By sunset, the valley added another memory stone rule. Enemy traps were still traps. They could be useful. They could not be trusted. If an enemy trap pointed danger away, the valley watched the edge and did not step inside the enemy's plan unless the valley itself was threatened. Petrie rubbed his head, Map very sick now. Littlefoot smiled tiredly, but honest. Kuro stood beyond the boundary and looked at the messy stones. The valley had learned not every danger needed to be stopped. Some needed to be understood and left alone. Chapter 50, The Boundary That Stayed. The final trap of the sign war was not a sign. It was an invitation. The torn-crested leader left it at dawn, not in scratches or scent or silence, but in his own body. He stood beyond the rough stones with his injured young packmate behind him, and the rest of the fast biters spread wide enough to be seen. No hiding, no bait scream, no false trail. Just a pack waiting outside the valley's sightline, facing the eastern wash where the larger predator had last vanished. Littlefoot saw the shape first. He wants us to understand something. Sira's answer came fast. Good, I understand he is still a fast biter. Kuro approved of that answer. Understanding was not trust. The larger predator roared from the eastern wash before anyone could decide what the invitation meant. The sound was wrong, ragged, furious, close. The fast biters did not scatter. They shifted together, making a broken half-circle that pointed toward the wash and away from the valley. Enemy trap. Useful trap. Not ours. The memory stones already held that lesson. Littlefoot placed them with steady feet: valley mouth, water path, southern brush, eastern wash, fast biter pack, larger predator. Ducky added the child stones first. Petrie took the high watch. Chomper checked the wind and winced. Big one coming toward both, he said. Pack and valley. There it was. The enemy's problem had become the valley's problem too. The torn-crested leader clicked once, sharp and carrying. He did not look at the children. He looked at Kuro. Sira stepped closer to the boundary line. No, absolutely no. We are not joining them. No join, Kuro said. Then he scraped the panic order into the dirt one last time. First danger, ask who benefits, protect what cannot move, hold shape, then read. It looked like too much again. Too many rules, too many stones, too many memories of almost dying. But this time, the valley did not recite them like a song. It moved them like muscle. The children went inward without being chased. The exits were held. Rested watchers replaced tired ones. The water path got one reader, not 5. The southern brush got a memory stone and no panic. Petrie called the larger predator's movement from above. Littlefoot kept the map ugly and honest. Kuro crossed the outer line. Not the valley boundary, never that. He crossed the space between valley and enemy, the place where every mistake had been written for days. The larger predator burst from the wash with blood on its shoulder and dust in its eyes. It had learned caution, but pain had eaten patience. It saw fast biters. It saw Kuro. It saw the open angle toward the valley. Kuro made himself the worst choice. He struck stone with both claws, loud enough to turn the beast's head, then ran sideways toward the rough shelf where the fast biters waited. The torn-crested leader moved at the same time, not with Kuro, beside the same danger. His pack flashed in and out at the wounded leg, driving the larger predator's weight toward broken ground. For one brutal minute, everything overlapped. Kuro's speed, the pack's knives, Petrie's calls, Littlefoot's stones, Sira's voice snapping anyone away from the wrong gap, Ducky shouting when a memory stone matched a moving shadow, Chomper barking sent warnings through fear. The valley held shape. The fast biters held their trap. Kuro held the space between them. The larger predator lunged after him and hit the broken shelf exactly wrong. Stone cracked. Its wounded leg folded. The beast slammed down with a roar that shook leaves from the trees. The fast biters scattered before its jaws could sweep them up, then returned just long enough to drive it farther into the collapse. Kuro did not go for the throat. The old hunger in him wanted to. The predator body knew endings written in blood. But the valley was watching, and more importantly, the valley did not need a death to survive this moment. It needed distance. Kuro tore a deep line in the dirt between the fallen beast and the valley. No farther. The torn-crested leader saw it. For a heartbeat, Kuro thought he would challenge the line out of spite. Instead, the fast biter clicked twice. His pack withdrew to the rough stones, bleeding and furious and alive. The larger predator dragged itself up with a sound like grinding rock and limped away from the valley, away from the pack, away from the place where every smaller creature had learned too much. No one chased. That was the victory. Not the beast's death, not the pack's surrender, not the valley opening its boundary. The victory was everyone knowing where not to step. Silence settled slowly. Petri landed so hard he rolled into Spike. Ducky laughed and cried at the same time. Sierra stared at the torn-crested leader across the broken ground and said, "I still hate him." "Good," Kuro said. Littlefoot looked at the line Kuro had carved. "But we understand him better." "Also good." The torn-crested leader held Kuro's gaze from the far stones. No thanks, no friendship, no promise. Then he lowered his head once, barely enough to see, and vanished with his pack into the rough hills. Kuro did not follow. Behind him, the valley waited. Grandma Longneck pushed a bundle of bitter leaves across the boundary for the cuts along his side. She did not cross. Kuro did not step in. Chomper checked the scent. Petri watched the ridge. Littlefoot placed one final memory stone outside the valley line. For Kuro. Sierra looked at it, then at him, still outside. Yes. She nodded like that was the only answer she could respect. By sunset, the practice dirt was full of stones, too many to keep forever. One by one, the children removed them, not because the lessons were gone, but because a map could not carry every fear forever. Some warnings had to move into memory. Some boundaries had to remain visible. The final stones stayed until dark. Valley. Boundary. Kuro. Rough hills. Unknown. Littlefoot touched the unknown stone last. There will be more. Kuro looked toward the dark hills where the fast biters had disappeared and the larger predator had fled. Yes. Ducky leaned against Spike, exhausted. But we know how to read more now. Yep, yep, yep. Kuro did not answer immediately. The valley was not safe. It would never be safe in the simple way children wanted and adults pretended to promise. The fast biters still hunted. The larger predator still lived. Kuro still had claws, hunger, and a shape that made small hearts stumble. But the valley had learned something stronger than trust. It had learned how to stay awake without letting fear choose every path. Kuro turned away before the moment became soft enough to lie. He stopped at the outer edge of the trees and looked back once. The boundary remained. So did he.